Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's great to see people dialing in from literally all over the world and every time zone. So, thank you for taking a break from work or for being with us in the middle of the night or somewhere in between. It's really great to see so many people joining us for this really exciting 60-minute deep dive webinar from MIT Sloan Executive Education. We're going to spend the next hour not only getting to watch, but also participate in a really exciting presentation and conversation with Dr. John Davis, who is a senior lecturer in family enterprise at the MIT Sloan School, and a special guest, Karim Zahran, who, among other things, is an alum of our advanced management program, but you'll hear a lot more about his incredible story and achievements shortly. This format, as Elaine mentioned, is intended to be interactive. So please do feel free to throw any questions that you might have in the Q&A tab of the Zoom window here. I'll be keeping an eye on those. My job really today is to just finish this introduction and then keep an eye on the questions that are coming in so that later on in the hour, we'll have a chance to be able to put your questions to John and to Karim. But in the meantime, let me just give a bit of an overview of what we're hoping or what we're planning to cover today in the webinar. We're going to be learning with John and with Karim about why today's turbulent environment calls for business owners to really step up more than ever before. And in particular, what John describes as or calls an owner's mindset, why that is important for your family business. We're also going to hear then more from Karim and his family business and how they have applied an owner's mindset and with extraordinary, really quite transformational results. And then towards the end, John will talk a little bit more about one program that he has been offering here in executive education, the Future Family Enterprise Program, that really encapsulates these kinds of ideas and has helped many owners and family groups to really apply the benefits of John's research and insights to their own businesses. So with that, I will just hand over to John. As I mentioned, John is a senior lecturer in family enterprise at the MIT Sloan School. I think probably everyone tuning into this webinar or the recording will already be very familiar with John and know, therefore, that he is really one of the people that founded the field of studying in a rigorous way the whole field of family enterprise. He teaches in executive education and in MBA courses here. He has many global recognitions and awards for his research and for his teaching and training programs, and advises, I want to say hundreds, but it might be by now thousands of owners and executives and family enterprises around the world, incredibly sought after experts. So John, we're so grateful and appreciative that you're here with us at the Sloan School, and especially that you're here with us in this webinar today. So with that, may I hand the stage to you, John, and take it away, please.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you all for joining us for not only hopefully some insights into family business success and what is driving it, but also a very interesting story by Karim Zahran, who has, I think, a very good illustration of how the owner mindset makes a pivotal difference in the decision-making, trajectory setting of a family business. And we'll have a chance to talk with Karim not only of how it has affected his family business, but also how it's developed, how you get there, how you develop this perspective that I'm finding really so not only influential, but crucial, pivotal to long-term success. And Karim comes to us not only with we're very proud to say, being a graduate of our advanced management program, but with a very good, interesting track record in his own family business, having helped his family make some crucial decisions and changes that has really built not only the wealth, but overall success of his family. And Karim comes to us today from Alexandria, Egypt, where his family is based, but is a world traveler, is here in Spain, other places. And so we're very glad to, Karim, to have your time with us today. And we'll come back and learn more about Karim in a bit. Let me tell you my thinking about this important topic of owner mindset. It starts here, that if you want to understand how family companies and what I call the broader family enterprise, which could include other types of investments besides an operating business, philanthropic activities, family activities, community activities, the set of activities and assets that really make a family an enterprising family and give it a sense of purpose, but also allow it to sustain itself over a long period of time. And I've spent the better part of my 45 years in this field understanding and trying to explain the elements of long-term success. And we've made some very good progress, including understanding in a very simplistic, but I think a very grounded way, that if you want to be successful, clearly the kind of enterprise you build, what you're invested in, the activities of the family make a difference. But those need to be supported by a very effective organization, talented, capable employees and managers. And the second stone in this framework is what we normally focus on, and what we normally focus on in a school of management, like Sloan. But the third stone, highlighted here in green, the stone of capable ownership, is underexplored, under-recognized, but clearly has a big impact on the success and long-term success of the enterprise and the family. The final stone, the family itself, and how the family contributes to this enterprise, is, of course, fundamental and pivotal also. But we're going to be focusing on this third stone. And if you want to understand what the role of owners is in this long-term success game, clearly, a good set of owners provide a stable and secure foundation so that managers can do their important work to lead and grow the value of the enterprise. But it's not just about stability, it's about fuel for growth. One of the most important things that an effective group of family owners contributes to the enterprise and to the organization that they're supporting is fuel. The fact that they take less of the dividends and don't take jobs that they don't deserve, but build an effective team in the organization to support the enterprise. And they contribute, the owners do, in a variety of ways to a variety of aspects of the family enterprise. All three of these types of contributions are well examined in the family enterprise field. But the fourth type of contribution, the necessity that family owners help direct, guide, make important choices and investments in setting the trajectory of the enterprise going forward. That has been something that I've been focused on now for the past 10 or 15 years, in trying to understand in what ways do owners set or guide the trajectory of what the family does. And what we understand from history is that some decisions always in a business always float up or need to float up to the owner level, meaning that they're no longer operational decisions, but they're big ticket decisions, decisions that can alter or affect the future direction of the enterprise, and the owners need to weigh in. They need to at least bless the decisions made by management and the board, but often they're called upon to decide, do we make that investment? It's a big investment. Do we make it? Do we diversify into this new activity? Do we adopt a technology that is not only expensive, but could change the culture and the way we do things? Who gets to lead the business in the future? Family companies and the owners of family companies have always needed to make some of those. But if you look historically, those kinds of big ticket decisions didn't float up to the owners very much, maybe a few times a generation. Now that's changed. Owners today of family companies, owners have a variety, a range of big ticket decisions that they're asked to make, not necessarily every year, but at least every few or several years. You're getting industry consolidation that the owners need to pay attention to, because if the industry consolidates, can we keep up? Can we stay relevant? New competitors entering our industry, technological change, which is happening relentlessly, disruptions, which happen occasionally, but can be big deal, changes to the way we do things, or even force us out of a game that we're playing. Customer needs are changing, regulations are changing, country risks. I have never seen a time when there are so many countries that I'm visiting and I'm working in, where the countries themselves have particular risks that families need to, and the owners need to diversify away from. And then, of course, next generation issues. If the next generation isn't paying attention, if the next generation isn't showing interest, that's a risk to our long-term success. So there are more and more issues floating up to owners, requiring that owners are able to think like owners. But there are two mindsets that you can see. Sometimes you see adequate amounts of both mindsets, but sometimes you're only seeing an operator mindset in the minds of owners. Just because someone has ownership doesn't mean that they think like owners. And in today's world, no one doesn't understand that operational excellence is required. Given the power of customers, given the fact that we can shop anywhere for most things, given the fact that competition in many and most industries is increasing, you've got to be good at operations. You've got to be excellent if you want to be a leader, if you want to really grow. But if you get trapped in an operator mindset, if you're only thinking about operational excellence and even innovating the way you do things, if that captures all of your mind space, you're not going to be thinking like an owner. And what does an owner think about? Value creation. Are we actually in running this well and in being good at customer service and even at innovating? Are we growing value? And Am I looking at the big picture, my industry, the larger economy, the global economy, what's happening even in my family? Am I looking at the big picture, not the picture around operations? Am I reading the tea leaves properly? Do I have a sense of where things are going and what bets I'm going to need to make? Do I have what we call not just an agile organization, which is also important, but an agile portfolio? Can I move out of certain investments and into certain investments in time? And do I have an orientation where we're willing to, interested in experimenting and diversifying and eventually moving out of migrating so that we can stay not only relevant, but keep growing value? Am I focused on the kind of talent we need? And am I consciously building resilience? Am I building our balance sheet so we have the resources to make new moves and to guard against some of the disruptions we may face? Am I building unity in our family so that when we go through transitions, the family stays with us? Am I building enough talent to be able to move in certain and in some different directions? Am I building resilience here? We're about to hear a story now that Karim will tell us that illustrates these various ingredients and ways of thinking that come through in what Karim has brought to and built into his approach to family enterprise. Karim, thank you very, very much for being with us. Thank you for not only the time and the story, but the passion you have for this particular topic, which we'll all appreciate as you tell your story. And I wonder if we can start with your family and tell us about your family and some of the things that they've done over time. We'll get into more detail in a couple of stories that are highly relevant for this topic. But please, tell us about Karim and his family.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the introduction and your kind words. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs and business owners from both sides, from my mom's side and from my father's side. My grandfather, Muhammad Zahran, he was a real pioneer. He started his first company in 1955, where he introduced aluminum cookware in Egypt. Unfortunately, in 1964, he was nationalized. It's like someone just pressed the reset button for him and his company. That didn't stop him. You know, a few years later, he started his second company despite the setback and the very challenging environment in the 60s in Egypt. With the support of his four sons, that company became the market leader in Egypt in cookware and small domestic appliances, where Zahran as a brand became a household name, not only in Egypt, but in all over the Middle East. And it was actually during his lifetime that the firm was passed down to the second generation, who were owner-operators. The second generation, my father and his siblings, they also had their ventures on the side. So this is more or less where the family fits. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. My father, Mamdouh Zahran, and my mother, Nihad Abul Fadl. I grew up in Alexandria, Egypt. I had a French Jesuit education. And then my parents sent me to the American school to prepare me for college. Actually, that American school is the oldest American school in Africa. This year, we celebrated 100 years. I attended Boston University, where I was on the tennis team. And I ended up graduating with 2 degrees, a degree in economics and a degree in finance. While in college, I was really intrigued and fascinated by this whole space of finance and capital markets. So to complement my education, I started pursuing internships. I ended up doing 2 internships in Washington, D.C., 2 internships in Geneva, Switzerland, and an internship in New York on Wall Street. When I graduated in 2008, I started my first full-time job, which was trading stocks on Wall Street at HSBC. The timing was very peculiar. My first day on the job on Wall Street was September 15, 2008, literally a few hours before Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. In 2010, a few years later, I was invited by my mom's brother, my uncle, who was my mentor, my role model, to co-found Compass Capital. We had an idea to start a private equity firm. And, today it's one of the leading private equity firms in Egypt. And again, I couldn't have timed it better, it was quite eventful. We just started a few months before the Arab Spring and the Egyptian Revolution. So again, a very, very eventful time. In 2014, I was invited by Group SEB, which is the market leader in cookware and small appliances, who are our partner in the cookware business, to join them in their Spanish subsidiary in Barcelona, Spain, to learn best practice. And lastly, in 2016, I moved back to Alexandria, Egypt, to take over a business that my father had started that I owned with my siblings, which was a supermarket chain, Zahran Market. So that's more or less a brief summary of my family and my background.
Yeah, thank you, Karim. And we're going to explore both Karim's involvement in the legacy cookware business, that is when he comes back to Alexandria in 2010. Now they have this very important relationship with Group SEB. And we will also then turn to your involvement with the supermarket business that your father founded, and where how you contributed to each of these 2 businesses is really the focal point of our work today in this class. So let me ask you about the cookware company. Can you give us some of the background and also how you interacted at a crucial point in this history to help the family set a better trajectory and to redefine the ownership in a way that was really beneficial to your family? Please tell us this interesting story.
Sure. So the core business for the family was the cookware business that my grandfather had started. That was his second company that he started in 1964. We, as a family, we were manufacturing, distributing, and selling in our showrooms our own brand, Zahran brand, and we were the agents for some of the leading European brands. Our most important partner was Tefal, which is the market leader. It's a French company, and we had been their agent since 1973. We were not just importing finished goods, but we were actually playing an important part of the supply chain where we were manufacturing in Egypt. So we had a company with a headcount of close to 800-900 people that was based in Alexandria, Egypt. In 2010, I was in Egypt by pure coincidence, and my father, who you can see here in the picture, invited me to attend that meeting that was called by our partners, Group SEB. And in that meeting, again, the team informed us of their big plans for Egypt and what they expect to see in the medium to long term, and how this plan involved setting up their own subsidiary and ending our agency relationship. As you might expect, that decision would have some very serious, dire consequences to the company and to the family. So again, we were in a state of shock, and I took my father to the side and I told him that we literally have a very small window if we're able to change the direction of this course, because once it's done, it's going to be a very tough direction for us. So I spoke to my father about a very unorthodox idea with the hope of reversing that very critical decision. And my father listened to me. You know, he's very balanced, and you know, and he gave me his support, and he gave me his backing, and he said, all right, feel free to intervene and speak. So I came back to the meeting, and I started highlighting how much there are synergies that can be generated if we work together with Group 7. You know, we have a very strong local know-how. We have had an operational excellence. We know the market better than anyone. And if we can combine these attributes with Group 7's attributes, we can build something much stronger, you know, and something that can be a lot more resilient, and we can create a lot more value than if they do anything by themselves, or if we keep the status quo. And this meeting was the catalyst that actually changed the course of the discussion and the decision that was taken initially. And it came back to the discussion table. And eventually in 2013, we decided to form a joint venture with Group 7 for the small domestic appliances. And that, again, paved the way and led us to 2018, where my family sold a majority stake to Group 7. And that sale successfully transitioned the business that my grandfather had started from a medium-sized family business into a multinational. You know, it became part of Group 7's network, and it became a company that was much stronger than what we had. And it was a company that was not only serving the local market, but it started exporting to many different countries. And today, my family is no longer involved in the operations. You know, we have board representation, and the company, you know, it's being run on a much higher level in terms of corporate governance and professionalism, as you might expect from the market leader, the global leader in that space. For me, again, you know, it was important to draw upon my experience from banking, what I was learning from HSBC, what I was doing in Compass. You know, I was successful at reframing this crisis, because it was going to turn into a crisis for the company and my family, and turned it into a great opportunity. You know, when you look at worst case and best case scenario for us, that was best case scenario, and it also happened to be value accretive for Group 7. So it was, you know, as my father was telling us, it was a win-win situation. And for us to be able to cultivate a new partnership between Zahran and Group 7 was key. My family, obviously, they were very happy with the outcome, because a couple of things. One, we preserved the value. We actually generated a lot more value. We resolved a very important issue, which was the generational transitional issue. You know, we are third generation, and we had fourth generation, and that transition was on everyone's mind. And now we have a lot more comfort that the legacy name that my grandfather, my father, and his siblings have started will continue with the backing of the global leader. So, you know, we can't ask for anything better in terms of, you know, keeping our name in safe hands.
Yeah, thank you, Karim. And, you know, clearly what we're trying to illustrate here is that if you hadn't gone into those sensitive, strategic conversations with Group 7, thinking like an owner, focusing on how to jointly generate more value, and not to be possessive about the operations of the company, but to look at the big picture of what they're trying to do and what you could do in this changing industry situation. If you hadn't had that perspective, you could have, things would have gone in a different way. And you told me a story once of a second company that Seb was also negotiating with, and the outcome there. Can you tell us that?
So Seb had two partners. They had us for the cookware business, and they had another partner for the small appliances. and each one had a different meeting, and eventually we were able to reach the results that I mentioned. And for them, for the other partner, it ended. And that's why we became their partner in 2013 for the joint venture. But I believe that he didn't look at it from the same perspective. We looked at it, you know, from a high altitude, and we were being pragmatic, and we were trying to highlight the synergies. We just took the conversation to a very different level. Instead of an operational discussion and looking at how is that going to end, and turning it and seeing, all right, what's the end goal and how can we be part of it? How can we maintain an operational role, or even upgrade it and have an ownership role? And at the end, Group Seb was very receptive, and they saw the value, they saw what we were trying to build here, and they realized, you know what, it makes sense. We've had this partnership for 40 years. Let's keep building on it. And there's a lot that we can do together as opposed to doing it the other way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And in terms of financial value, your family has by several times multiplied the value of that investment in that company, I would say.
So it's a private company, so there you can't mark to market, but from what we were able to do, if you look at the numbers by ourselves just as a local company, and instead what we ended up doing with Group Seb, the numbers just speak for themselves. So obviously the value of the company from the numbers is much different.
Yeah. So great story, but you're not done. And a few years later, you were actively looking at another operation that your family had that you could influence. And this is the Zahran Market company that your father started, that your branch owned. And tell us this interesting story.
So as I was telling you, my father was a serial entrepreneur. He was very opportunistic. He started many businesses, unrelated, very diversified, and he was a real pioneer when you look at his background. And one of the companies that he started in 1987 was a supermarket. It was one branch for almost 10 years. And the picture that you see here is the opening of that branch in 1987. I was 2 years old, so I don't remember it much, but that picture, rings a bell. So the company was operating in a very tough environment. Retail, supermarkets in general, it's not an easy business, and the company was underperforming. However, I saw an opportunity. I studied Zahran market, and I thought that this would be a great prime case for a turnaround. I was inspired by what we did with Group Seb in terms of the value creation, the synergies, how the company grew in many different fronts. I was inspired by Compass Capital turnarounds and the value creation that we were doing in the portfolio companies, under the Compass umbrella. So under my father's blessings, I took over the business with my brother with a private equity mindset. We wanted to fix the business. We wanted to generate value. We wanted to do a complete restructuring turnaround and to eventually exit that business in order to be more diversified and have a more agile portfolio. So I was wearing two hats. I needed to work on both at the same time, simultaneously. I needed to wear the CEO hat and run the operations, improve efficiencies. I needed to strengthen it and to create value. And I was also thinking of my strategic options. I'm a big believer of case studies. I accumulated as many case studies as I could about supermarkets in order to help me devise my strategy and my plan and what to do and focus on, what not to focus on, my KPIs, my OKR. So, and actually one of the cases was written by an MIT professor about Mercadona. It was a great inspiration. So I did that, and we really dug deep into the company. It wasn't a startup. It was a company that was started in the 80s. So we came in, and let me give you a few examples of the things that I did. I did a process audit. I hired a new top management and middle management. We implemented a new IT ERP system. We came up with a new corporate identity. We renovated all our old branches. We started expanding and investing into new branches. We formed partnerships, to enhance customer experience and traffic. And, we really came in and did a lot of the heavy lifting, just like a private equity would do, just like what we would have done had it been a Compass portfolio company. But I was doing it with my brother. And at the end, our efforts culminated with the Zahran Market attracting a leading private equity firm to buy a majority stake in 2022. But down inside, I expected that eventually we will have a full exit, to continue with our big diversification project.
Let me make, based on this interesting, story and great turnaround story. You had an owner mindset, but you also had not only an appreciation for operational excellence. You knew that these stores had to operate in a better way, in a more effective way, but you also had operational skills. Just because a person has an ability to think like an owner doesn't mean that that is mutually exclusive from also thinking like an operator. The difficulty is many people don't do both or can't really do both. And a lot of owners, because they're operators at heart, lean much more into operations and don't give, the freedom and have the experience to rise up to the owner level and think also like an owner. So your story indicates you can do both. You can do both without and give full emphasis on both. But your major goal here was to grow value and to transform and to make this organization really valuable in a very difficult market and industry, where that's a tough thing to do. So
that, I spent some years in banking and in private equity, and again, our ultimate objective was always maximizing shareholders' value. What really matters, what's important, what do we need to be working on to generate value, what's the strategy, are we following that, does that make sense, and always questioning and challenging myself on because at the end of the day, you have very limited resources, and you need to be smart into how to deploy it. It's not an open check, and with the idea that you want to maximize shareholders' value, it was always my guiding thing. So I really applied, and I felt that my banking experience and private equity had really helped me to be able and to be in that position.
yeah, thank you. So something just happened.
This week, this week was a very important week for myself and my family, as we sold out the remaining 40% of the supermarket business, just as planned, and we're all very happy and excited for that important milestone. And the proceeds are going to go to the family office to help us continue being more diversified and to grow the agile portfolio of ours.
Yeah, thank you. And so your portfolio is now this.
Yes,
You're back.
It keeps evolving. As you can see, it started off as just operational assets, and it's going from operational assets to assets where we're just shareholders without the operational part, you know. So the one remaining thing is the commercial real estate. We're still running this company that my father had started, but other than that, the legacy cookware, it's taken care of by our French partners. And we started, and by the way, when it says family office, it's just myself and my brother. You know, it's just the two of us. You know, we're sourcing ideas, and we have it in some financial investments, some you know, some private equity investments in Egypt, and we're keeping it. We're trying to actually institutionalize this this office. We're in discussion with PwC to help us make it more professional, to help us write a family constitution, and basically to continue with the involvement of this project.
Excellent. So let's thank you for these stories, and we'll ask our participants to give us their questions in a minute, but let's zoom out and just talk for a minute or two about general lessons about developing an owner mindset. You've had a variety of experiences. You start with your entrepreneurial family, and that had to be shaping to a significant extent. But then you have a particular career path, which also allows you to step back, see bigger picture, also be very conscious of value creation. So what stands out to you as formative in your perspective?
I think my background, you know, being brought up in a family business, in an industrial family, made it in my DNA. You know, I grew up in a culture that really encouraged entrepreneurship. It really encouraged, you know, discussions around businesses, and for us to challenge ourselves. You know, I always grew up hearing stories about my grandfather and how resilient he was, and how difficult the environment was, and you know, that hasn't stopped him. My father just navigating a very difficult market environment, and you know, how to identify opportunities. So I was raised to ask questions and challenge myself. And growing up and then going to college, I always thought of different ways where I can come back and help the family, you know, from looking at different case studies, from talking to my professors, from you know, attending meetings, and trying to build my general understanding of what's happening, and trying to get a big perspective and a big you know, helicopter view on things, in order to be able to come back and have an impact, you know, to have a global perspective. You can see from the pictures, a picture of my grandparents with my uncles, and a picture of myself with my parents in the opening of one of the branches, and a picture with my grandmother and my daughter, who's named after her. For me, family was, and still is, the most important part of my life, and being part of a family business is something that I'm very proud of. And you know, it's really defined me, and I feel that having the ability to work in all of these places and invest in my education, and you know, invest in my curiosity, had allowed me to come back and be impactful in a positive way with my uncles, with my cousins, and I feel that those catalyst event have really enabled a lot of us in the family to get the freedom to pursue different things. And again, you know, we mitigated some important events that, you know, could have gone the other way.
Yeah. Peter, I see that our participants are active in the chats. What questions do they have for Karim or me?
There are a lot of questions and comments, so thank you. Keep them coming. Several of the earlier ones had to do with topics that, as the conversation unfolded, you really got round to addressing. So well done to people for asking those questions. Obviously, very smart and prescient of them, and well done, John and Karim, for actually planning to talk about things that were going to be relevant to people here. But one thing that I see coming out as a theme here. You talked a little bit about sort of the difference between an owner mindset and an operator mindset. And there were some questions that were looking to explore that in a bit more depth, and quite interesting in particular, Karim, because in your portfolio, you are both. You have businesses that you operate, you have businesses that you own but don't operate. And sort of my addition to that as well, which I'm curious about, is the fact that part of your owner mindset has been clearly this vision of when to exit businesses as well. And so people were curious about, how do you make that decision? Owner, operate, exit.
Yeah.
What were the factors that led you to make those kinds of decisions?
Yeah. Karim, please, this is for you. This is great.
It's very difficult to time, an exit or a particular event. I feel that it needs to be part of your plan. We came up with a certain plan in both instances. Let me step back. For example, in Compass Capital, before we look into an investment, we know exactly what we're planning to do and how we will eventually exit. Obviously, different scenarios, market conditions allow a lot of these things, but we have a plan and you work accordingly. In our instances, with the Group SEB story or case, it happened upon us that we were in crisis mode and we had to find a way out. So that just worked. It's natural way. For Zahran market, again, I came with this private equity mindset, and I set a plan of the things that I wanted to do, that I felt I was able to do given the capital constraints that we had. And once we achieved the milestones that we laid for us, we thought that this was a good time for us to explore different strategic options. But again, it's very hard and tricky to time it based on one specific thing. You have to look at the whole picture. The market conditions need to be there, and so on and so forth.
Let me just tag on to what Karim is saying here very wisely. I would say that every ownership group, you own a company, you have certain capabilities, market understandings, skills, insights, et cetera. If you're a good owner, you've got that, resources, et cetera. But you always need to be thinking about, are we the right owner for this operation to really achieve what it could achieve? And, in generations past, you could keep a business and own a business and reinvest in that business and grow it, and that worked well. In today's world, you might be able to keep a business, a certain operation for generations, or you might need to, after a generation or two, rethink it and say, are we the best owner? And what I remind families of all the time is, there's a tendency to think that we need to be good stewards of this particular business, meaning we keep it, we grow it, we reinvest in it. Well, yes, up to a point. But you really need to be stewards of creating value. That's what you really need to feel. That's what our job is. And certain things we can keep longer, other things we can keep shorter. And you just need to be ready to make those changes in your portfolio. That's why we talk about an agile portfolio, so that your value can continue to grow. That's what I would add. Any other questions, thoughts, Peter?
Sure. We have
Yes.
many. Let me sort of introduce another theme, which is there are several questions about, which is, I think broadly, you've described, Karim, some really high stakes decisions that you and your family have made, and the questions have to do with what are the kind of governance structures and implications of making those kinds of decisions. Were there disagreements and conflicts, different opinions, perhaps between generations? And are there, any tips that you've got around how you've thought about setting up the structure and the governance and board composition and so forth to be able to navigate that?
Very good question. As you expect, a family business for the cookware legacy business that we had, I was the third generation. It was ran by my uncles, and it was owned by the second generation, which was my father and his 6 siblings. So everyone had his ideas, his emotional connection. Again, it's a company that carries our name. So it wasn't something that was easily taken by anyone. But when my father spoke to them and told them about where we are and the risk that we're facing, everyone saw the benefit, especially that it was going to address a problem that everyone was concerned about, which was the transition to the next generation. In the company, I only had 3 of my cousins working in the company, so it wasn't a clear way of what we would have done otherwise. As you might expect as well, that it was a privately held company, so our board was only made up from the family, and we didn't have any independent board members. But then again, that was the nature of many of the businesses that we have here in Egypt for family businesses. In terms of the supermarket, it was myself and my siblings, and from the get-go, before I started, my role as CEO, that was my intention. My intention was to, build the company, fix its inefficiencies, and eventually exit. So we were all together aligned on what we wanted to do, and it's very, very important to be transparent and for everyone to know where we are and to set the expectations from the beginning, because otherwise it becomes very tricky, especially when it comes to family decisions like that.
Yeah, excellent point.
Yeah. If I could take us in a slightly different direction, there are some questions which I think are fascinating. And you mentioned, without naming, but our colleague Professor Zeynep Tom as one of your inspirations with the Mercado supermarket case, and that of course is a lot about the importance and power and sort of business rationale for being essentially a good employer. And so we've had some questions that have to do with how have you thought about taking on both those kinds of ideas and really working with your employees and making sure that they are part of part of the successful formula that you've been creating here.
So I mentioned that one of the first things that I did was to do a process audit, but actually the decision that I did prior was to raise everyone's salary. I was definitely and absolutely inspired by Professor Zeynep Tom's case and the points that she makes about good working conditions, and I believe that it was important to get everyone more aligned and for people to feel that we're part of a family business. It's everyone is in it together, and to get everyone's excited again. And again, it's tough, being in an emerging markets. Conditions are not the easiest, and I felt that we need to boost people's morale and we need to boost people's loyalty to the company. So we did raise the wages, and we started doing a lot of different things for people to feel more like a family in the company. We were supporting different initiatives, and I think it had a lot of feedback. And from what I heard from the employees, these things did have a lot of positive reaction.
And if I can interject here, to our participants in this webinar, the MIT and MIT Sloan School of Management has wonderful resources. Since joining the faculty several years ago, I've been just so thoroughly impressed with the thinking group of faculty colleagues that I've got that are really so expert in managing change, managing operations, leadership, finance. It's just a wonderful group. And of course, Karim, you experienced this through the advanced management program at MIT. Let me try to close here with just a few ideas that, Karim, you've expertly helped us to illustrate and bring to life. The owner mindset will, in the years ahead, the decades ahead, this mindset is the pivot for most family businesses. If you've got it and can get there and think like an owner, and you can appreciate and think like an operator as well. But if you must be able to get here, if you're going to survive in the modern business environment. And one way to help you and your family develop this and gain an appreciation for this, and to be able to think about how we nurture this owner mindset along with our commitment to operational excellence, is to bring your family to this program, the Future Family Enterprise Program, that deals with a variety of core issues that families in business need to be thinking about, doing good work in, and advancing their agenda around. In addition to FFE, the program that I lead, which is the 6-day family team-oriented program, my colleague Andrew Lowe is developing and is offering a new program in a very exciting area called Impact Investing for Family Offices. And I hope you will use the QR codes here to learn more about both of these programs. And we want to very much thank you for joining us. And Karim, thank you very, very much for contributing your story, imparting your experience, and helping us to see the advantages and the pivotal advantages of this mindset that has meant so much to you and to your family, but is generalizably, pivotal for our future success as families in business. Thank you very, very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, John. Thank you,
Yeah,
Karim.
Peter,
Thank you, everyone,
thank you.
for joining us. It's been fantastic. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.